How's it going? Um, so in this video, I want us to discuss how the financial system actually works. And this is an interesting topic because there's so much that goes into this. So the first thing that you should do is to watch the video of how the monetary system works, how the banking system works, and this video will make a whole lot more sense. So money is different from banking, which is different from finance. But all of these tie in together, of course, and all of this is what the video is about. So let's get right to it. So when we talk about money, first of all, we're talking about a water-based currency, which is just a water-based current. But this current is also an electrical current, which is why people get charged, and which is why the market faces certain shocks. And this current is also a wind current. The third thing that it is a wind current, which is a current of air. So this is where we get the word trade winds from, because a trade wind is simply a current of air that blows in a certain direction. And this is how people trade, and this is how trade began. So when trade happened, when trade began, it began on the sea. And you use the trade winds in order to sail, in order to make a sail. So you use that in a boat, which is basically a floating device that has a captain, and this captain is determined by who pays the capital. So whoever pays the capital to make the boat sail is the captain of the ship inadvertently. So this is how it all comes in. So money is the current in the water, the current in the electricity, and the current in the air. So when we talk about the financial system, what we're talking about is how the banks actually operate and how they use this information as their ways of operation. And all right, the first thing that we see is that when we have money, we have words written on it, and these words on the dollar bill in America, we see that it says "In God We Trust." Okay, and that's just an indication of what exactly is going on. So all money is actually based on trust, as we've already established. It's only something that you use at the current moment. So in barter trade, if you wanted to get something from someone at that moment, you didn't have a currency in order to transact. So money was an invention that satisfied the coincidence of needs. So now we have this money, but this money that we have today is not money, it's a currency. So now we have a currency. So this currency is not backed by anything besides trust. So all of the money in the world is credit, okay? This is important. All of the money in the world is credit. So you go to a bank and banks give us credits. So these credits are just like when you play a video game, you get credits. That's just how it is. And this credit is how money comes about. So we have to have trust in the banking system for us to transact in money. So all money is what we believe it is. So the perceived value of that money is the belief that we have. So this credit means that we give credit to it. We give credence to this money. So all of these are how we actually use money. Money is credit because we trust that the bank is going to honor this credit. Just like a check, it's credit. And how money started, if you go back to the goldsmiths, they were only using credits. So for us to actually have this credit, we need to have credentials. So this is just the word credit, and credential is where that word comes from. Credit is how you get the money, and the money is actually just a credential. So when you go to a bank, they're just going to want to see your credentials. So all of this credit is just a credential, but it's all based on credence. So this credence is just a creed. So this creed is a system of belief. A creed is a system of belief, and this creed is the credit. This credit is the credential. So why is it that when we're talking about this, we start talking about all of these different words? And the reason is because the whole world is made with words. If you take the word world, you're actually spelling word, but you put L. L means God. This is where we get Elohim. So actually, that means gods, Elohim. And if you say the universe, you mean uni and verse, which means one verse, one word. And let there be light. That was the one verse that created the universe. So this is why we use words to describe everything in existence. So our words actually come from a place called Phoenicia. So the Phoenicians are the people who gave us the alphabet. The word alphabet means Aleph and Beth. Aleph means the first, Beth means the second. So all of our words are actually from the Phoenician language. The Phoenicians were Semitic people who lived in modern day Lebanon. So these people were called Phoenicians in the time of Jesus, even before that. So they were people who created the alphabet that we now use. So let's just take it back a little bit so that we can get the scope of this. In the beginning, in the Bible, it says that they were building a Tower of Babel. And then this Tower of Babel, they were building into the high heavens. And Elohim, again, Elohim, which is the gods, came down. And then they saw that these people are doing this and it was bad according to them. And then they confused the people's languages. So this is Babylon, and this is where, and right next to this country is where Lebanon is, Babylon, and now Babylon is Iran, and that's why there are all these wars. So that is like where the Tower of Babel was. So from this tower, the languages were confused, and the point is the languages were what was holding it all together. And the moment that the languages were confused, the people started to babble. Like, hey, this guy is babbling. What's all this babbling they're doing? Because of the Tower of Babylon. So in Babylon, everyone's just babbling. And we use English as a universal language. We use English. If your country has a constitution, it's using English. And we use this as a universal language. And all of the other languages come from English. But English comes from Latin. Latin comes from Greek. Greek comes from the Phoenician language. So the Phoenicians gave the Greeks the languages, the Greeks gave the Latins. So the Latins are the Romans. So all of the Roman languages, the Romance languages all over Europe are what people are using. And all over in the other Western countries, this is what they're using. In Africa, we have our own languages, right? But all of these languages are actually traced to a certain common root, even in the Bantu languages. So all of these languages are tied in together. This is why some of the words are interlinked. But basically, we all speak the same language. And this was in the same, this is the same essence as when people were building the Tower of Babel. Because they could all understand each other. Just like right now, everything on the internet is in English, or it can be translated from English. So everything is in English, and English is derivative of different languages. So when we speak in English, actually we're using different languages. So how does this matter when we talk about finance? So all of the finance comes from our belief in this credit system. So when we talk about this credit, we talk about these credentials, okay? So when we talk about a credential is simply a document. So people go to school. They go to school to get a document. And when you're in school, you're told a certain doctrine. You are indoctrinated in every school. This is what schools are there for. They're there just to give you a certain doctrine. So this doctrine is supposed to be fed to you so that you're indoctrinated. And at some point, if you are learning for your whole life, you end up getting all of these documents. You get certificates, these documents, these credentials, so that you have credit. When you go to a bank, you show them your credentials so that you can get credit, so that you have credence, so that you join the creed of money in society. And then you're just getting these documents according to a certain doctrine. So if you subscribe to a certain belief system, for example, if you're like me, you're from Africa, you're from the motherland, the source of everything, and then you say that, no, my belief is different from this Western belief, so let me have my own doctrine as I've already learned it. No, you can't do that, because you won't get the credentials and you won't get the credit, because they want everybody in this creed. Okay, so a creed is a belief system, and they give you a doctrine. A doctrine is a belief system. So this doctrine at the end of the day is doctored. So a doctor actually is a word that is used for a person who is used to doing transactions. So this is where we get finance from. So finance is all about these documents being doctored according to a certain doctrine. So crazy as it is, this is what's happening. So finance just means settlement. This is why finance, banking, and money are different things. Finance is just about documents being settled. So a doctor is a person who goes to school and has a lot of documents, right? And then you become a doctor when you get a PhD. You become a doctor because you have been able to get the doctrine, right? So you write your own dissertation, your own thesis, because you want to get the doctrine in the form of a doctor. And if you become a doctor, you can also become a professor, right? This is the next step from you getting the credentials, you become a doctor, you can become a professor. After you have a PhD, you become a professor. And this is where we get professionals from. So when you're a professional in any field, it means that you have the credentials. It means that you have the credit. So when you're a professional, you start to get the money. So all professions, or all the professions, are part of a certain doctrine. So if you're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, a pilot, an author, whatever it is, if that is your profession, if you're a professional at that, it just means in this system that we're actually living in, it means that you have the certain words that are ascribed to that certain vocation, right? Because everyone in a certain vocation is speaking a different language. So all of this is because of the alphabet. Alphabet is actually not even an English word. Alphabet, these are made up of two words which are actually Phoenician words. So Phoenician actually means phonics. So phonics is the phonetics, how we hear things, just like a phone. You use a phone so that you can hear stuff. So these phonetics are how our words are actually set up and how they come about. So when we hear this, this is the way that we actually communicate. It doesn't matter what it looks like on paper. What you hear is what you get. So this is how this whole this whole thing works. This is just how it works. So it works because these are the people who are the authorities. They author the rights and everything like that. So when we talk about finance, we're talking about this money, this credit, and this whole system. So the way that the Phoenicians came about was that they were people who were traders, and they were trading with Greeks, and they were trading with different people, and they were trading because they were just near the sea. All right. So when we talk about money, remember we're talking about a water-based currency. And these Phoenicians who created the language, who actually created everything that we now speak about. So when we are talking, what we're using is an imperfect language because we're not able to really communicate. If you read different philosophies, Eastern philosophies, not Western philosophies, like Lao Tzu, for example, he's a Taoist. He's speaking about the way that things are supposed to be happening. And the first way that he speaks about, the first line in the Tao Te Ching is to say, the way that can be spoken is not the way. The Tao that can be Taoed is not the Tao. The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. Which means that the moment we start speaking, it's like we are actually corrupting our own initial understanding of everything. So our words are our knowledge of good and evil, because through words we're able to deceive, and we're also able to heal and bless, but we're also able to deceive. And this is the conundrum we find ourselves in because we ate from the fruit, from the vine, the divine. So so when we're talking about this, we're talking about a water-based system and a water-based currency. And these Phoenicians were right here at the sea. So they were at the sea right there in Lebanon, and they were trading with other countries. And through this trading, this is how they were able to exchange their languages, exchange their ways, and exchange their means with the Greeks. So they were right next to the Greeks, and then they gave that understanding to the Greeks. So in all of this, what ended up happening was that the Greeks ended up assimilating this language and using this. So when they were using this, the Greeks also transported it to the Romans. So the Romans where it's now all at, because now the world is ruled by the Roman languages. So everywhere you go, you're going to be speaking in English. And this is why we're speaking in English right now, because we can communicate in this language. But this language is actually not what the Romans use to speak and communicate. We use English, which is a corrupted version of Latin. So now, if you go to a court, if you go to any place of power, so if every country in the world has a constitution and has laws and has a court system and has a financial system, right? And under all of that, then we get the health system, the educational system, and all of these things under the courts and the finances. So when we do this, we see that in the court, what we're actually using as language is Latin. We're not using English in court. You can actually go to a court and start speaking in Latin, and you're just speaking in Latin. This is what law is all about. All laws are in Latin. This is a fact. So every law that you abide to is in Latin, is in a different language from English. It's written in English, but it is in Latin. So English comes from Latin. So all these words are actually root words from the Latin. So the same way that when you go to the laws that make money, because money that we are talking about is the finance, right? So this finance is actually legal tender. So it's legal tender. So legal meaning lawful, and tender meaning the trend. So it's that's why it keeps on inflating. So when we're talking about the financial system, we're talking about how people who have influence are able to authorize whatever is happening through credit, through credence, through documents, and through everything. So this fluency is a way of speaking. Fluency is a way of speaking. So just like a fluid, which is what currency is. So people in this day and age get paid because of the money, the way that they are actually able to speak. In our society, the people who rise to the top and lead the whole community are people who are politicians or orators, people who orate, people who speak, people who are fluent. These are the people who are Obama, who are whoever your president is. Chances are, if you're not in communist China, chances are this person is able to speak. Actually, Xi Jinping is a great speaker in Chinese. He is a great speaker. But all of these people are very, very fluent. That is how they become influential. And when they become influential, they're given authority. And authority means author, and it means right. So they author right. So they create the rights. RIGHTRITES. It doesn't matter what it looks like on paper. The phonetics, because it's all Phoenician. So when we talk about money, people are given credit because of their credentials and because of how they're perceived in terms of being trusted. So money in this financial system is all about trust. And all of these currencies are just flowing in terms of this fluency. So the financial system works like that. And all of the other laws that are in financial banking, in financial law, in international trade, international transactions are derived from the language of Latin. So your understanding of this root gives you a whole like treasure chest to see how all of these work and how everything really interacts. So your belief system is your money system. So the way that you think is the way that the financial system is going to work for you in terms of your credit, in terms of your finance, in terms of your money, in terms of your banking. So it's not just about the document. It's really about what you say and what you do, your credit worthiness in this system and in everything that you do. So is this bad or is this good? I don't know, but all I know is that we are living in this type of system, this type of regime, and you have to know this so that you can be equipped to know how you can maneuver through all of this stuff. We all need money in order to survive. So you won't survive if you don't have the right requisites. So your belief system is your belief system. So what you need to do is to be able to work in terms that benefit your family, in terms that benefit your purpose on this earth, and that serves the greater good of all of humanity, and be able to understand that you are a person who changes the status quo in everything that you do. So this is how the financial system works. So it's all lexicon, and it's all words, it's all verbal. This is how we get vowels. These vowels we use are actually vowels. This is a promise. So these vowels are a vowel, or vow to God. So your words are very important. God created the word with his words. So these people want to create the same word with their words. But God has the final say at the end of the day.